So I recently finished this climbing game called Cairn.
It really got me thinking about climbing mechanics in games.
I realized that climbing in most games kinda sucks. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to where this all began. The bottom.
Cairn's climbing mechanics were basically so good that it exposed all the flaws of so many other games. It made me realize that climbing always feels like artificial filler, like an automated roller coaster with no real challenge or risk. Something that happens in between the good parts of the game. But it doesn't need to be this way. When I truly look at climbing in games, it always leads me back to one question.
Is this actually fun?
Hold for the music. There's two key factors to what makes climbing fun in a game. First is the climbing mechanics themselves. How does it feel to climb? Does it have enough mechanical complexity to be engaging? And second is the pressure created through those mechanics and its consequences. It's these two things that a lot of games fall short on and where I think they can learn from what Cairn has accomplished. Too often, climbing in games is reduced to a simplified and streamlined gameplay loop. Push forward, press the jump button, and the game basically does the rest. All too often, the feeling of risk is non-existent and the consequences of failure too harsh or completely inconsequential. No engaging mechanics plus no risk equals no fun. There's a lot of gameplay systems and mechanics that have become ubiquitous throughout games. Think things like light and heavy attacks or shoot the red barrel. If I showed you this color scheme, you can rank them from common to legendary without really thinking about it. Now, while some of these evolutions make sense, they do stifle creativity and homogenize gameplay systems to the point where they start to feel samey. And a lot of them suck ass in a lazy design in my opinion. Yellow paint, battle passes, x-ray vision, map markers, quest markers, compass markers, fucking markers galore. And climbing is one of these ubiquitous gameplay mechanics that barely sees any evolution. On rails, magnet hands, yellow paint, single inputs, no control, boring as shit. Climbing is used more as a pacing mechanism and a logistical solution to traveling vertically in a space, but that doesn't mean it has to be boring. I think this is why we're seeing a huge surge of successful indie climbing games like Cairn, because they fill a niche that most mainstream games aren't. I'll show you an example. Let's see, why don't we go for some low-hanging fruit and roast the new Assassin's Creed games. Here's what climbing looks like in Assassin's Creed Odyssey. Alright, in order to show you just how engaging the climbing mechanics are in this game, we're going to need a little tool. We've got this bad boy, it's just your average run-of-the-mill rubber band. And what we're going to do with this rubber band is wrap it around our controller, like so. So we can really see how fun this game is. And we've got a statue here that we're going to climb, and a nice big scrotum, so yeah, why don't we just jump on and have fun. There we go. Woo! This is so much fun! Oh wow, I love this. It's so engaging. Hang on guys, I'm just gonna go take a shit.
2 hours later.
Alright. Just finished dropping a deuce. Looks like we finally made it to the top. Wow, and I didn't even have to play. Oh, and you know what the perfect thing is to go with this rubber band? Let me show you. Just open up the store. XP boosters, baby. So now you can skip leveling and skip climbing, because who the fuck wants to play an Ubisoft game? Oh, that's it. One input, just hold forward and the game basically plays itself. This is not fun. This is the most boring, mindless shit ever. There's no challenge and no meaningful choice. You can scale any obstacle from any direction and your experience will be exactly the same from hour 1 to hour 1. Yeah, fuck no. Not even if you paid me, Ubisoft. The new Assassin's Creed games decided to follow trends instead of embracing what made it unique, replacing the old mechanics with climbing so brain dead a paperweight could literally do it. The older Assassin's Creed games, while not perfect, did it so much better. Only certain obstacles were climbable, so when you traversed the city, you had to actively watch where you were going and make quick decisions on the fly to keep your momentum and successfully avoid the po-po.
That's the sound of the police!
Yeah, that's a police pope pig pun. What am I doing with my life? It provided a level of challenge that demanded focus and incentivized the player to learn the layout of each city. I guarantee you know Venice from AC2 better than any Assassin's Creed city from the new games. And that's because climbing mechanics affect the relationship you have with the world around you. It's how you speak to your environment and how your environment speaks to you.
The problem with the new Assassin's Creed games isn't the fact that you can climb any surface. It's the lack of mechanical complexity to keep it engaging that's the problem. Shadow of Colossus adds various monsters with different and interesting ways to scale them. In Breath of the Wild you can scale anything just like Assassin's Creed, and while I do think its climbing could be better, it at least adds another dimension with stamina management. It severs that connection you have with the world by mindlessly automating the process and turning that dialogue between the player and the world into a one-way conversation, reducing climbing to function exactly the same as walking. And let me tell you, climbing does not feel like walking.
Now, before we go any further, I want to say that obviously Cairn is a climbing game, whereas most games just have climbing in them. It's only one component of a larger experience. They also have to balance story, combat, and whatever else. So it makes sense that their climbing won't be as mechanically deep, or even needs to be. But games like Assassin's Creed, Uncharted, and Breath of the Wild put a large emphasis on climbing. So if these games are going to be making me do it a lot, then its mechanical complexity should be enough to keep me engaged, and ideally, it should make me excited to climb. When I played Sifu, I was always sad when the combat ended, because it felt so damn good. Climbing should feel like that. I'm not saying every game needs to play like Cairn, and I'm not asking for the Dark Souls of climbing to be in every game, but I need some sort of mechanical complexity, something I can latch onto to keep my monkey brain from zoning out. So, I've rambled on a lot. I should probably tell you why Cairn is so good. The real magic behind Cairn's climbing mechanics is the ability to control your limbs individually. You put your left arm up, you move your right leg in. You stretch your right arm out and you shake it all about. You use your positioning to create leverage. That's what it's all about. You use your positioning to create leverage, stretching for every millimeter you can. You wedge yourself into tiny cracks and make do with any small hold you can find. It seems so simple, right? But it creates depth and challenge by giving the player choice. You can't just hold down the parkour button by pressing forward. You need to be deliberate, methodical, because a bad grip or a bad foothold will quickly lead to failure. Because the game doesn't use pre-canned animations and they're all done in real time, it allows a sort of freedom that just isn't found in most games. Sure, this definitely creates some pretty hilarious jank, but it's a trade-off that I'd happily make to be able to climb the way I want to, rather than the way the game wants me to. All of this means that the wall now becomes a puzzle to be solved with multiple solutions. The end goal is the same, to get to the top, but how you get there is unique to you. It demands such granular focus on the holds you choose from moment to moment that it puts you into a flow state, to the point where you lose track of time and even how high you've climbed. This is the secret sauce that's lacking from games like Assassin's Creed. The challenge Cairn offers forces a present mind rather than thinking about anything else.
Hang on guys, I'm just gonna go take a shit.
Fucking hell. This mattress is thinner than I thought. So, let's talk about the second part to why Cairn is so good, and why every other game with climbing in it sucks. It's all about pressure and consequences. What's at risk when you're climbing in a game? What makes the sweat drip down your balls? The most obvious answer is falling, right? But it's not really about falling, it's how the game chooses to punish you for falling. Falling in most games results in either dying and loading the last checkpoint, or losing a chunk of health and climbing progress. The consequence currency is time, or a drain on resources that costs you time. For this I want to talk about Uncharted, because Uncharted's climbing has kind of become the template for climbing in AAA games, especially Sony games. Now, before you come at me, I like the Uncharted series, and most Sony exclusives for that matter, but I like them not because of their climbing, rather in spite of them. Now, to be fair, they are slightly more mechanically deep than pressing forward to do the thing. In these games, you have to point where you want to go and press X. And I hope you like doing that because Uncharted will make you do it. A lot. The problem with this type of climbing, aside from the mechanical simplicity, is the lack of risk. Nathan Drake has magnet hands and fancy pre-can animations that always catch the ledge. And if he doesn't, well, there'll be a checkpoint right where you fell anyway. And when you repeat those same scripted moments, you start to see through the facade. If there's no risk, there's no pressure, and therefore no excitement. The hand-holding nature of the system means there is no real danger. It creates a disconnect between what you, the player, is feeling and what the character is feeling. When I scale a crumbling ledge hundreds of meters above solid ground in Uncharted, I feel nothing. Climbing in Uncharted looks exciting, but it doesn't feel exciting. It feels more like a theme park ride with guardrails. This diminishes any pressure the game tries to apply because most of it's preordained, artificial, and out of your control. Now I get it, these types of games are very controlled and curated experiences, and that's okay. There's definitely an argument to be made that simple on-rails gameplay is a natural byproduct of cinematic linear single-player games. And it's not lost on me that these climbing mechanics have to be balanced for combat as well. But it's crazy that I find this more intense than this. Here's how Cairn handles pressure and consequences. First of all, Cairn's mechanical complexity already creates tension. Because it gives the player so much control, it means the onus is on you as the player. But this is amplified tenfold by how Ava responds to your decisions and the direct feedback she gives you when you make a bad move. When you're unstable, Ava's limbs begin to shake, her breath quickens, her voice quivers with fear. There's a subtle loss of color on the screen when she's about to fall. All of these have a compounding effect on the player, and the result is that Ava's emotions become your emotions, and the game pushes you to master those emotions. In the beginning, when I was about to fall, I would scramble for any hold and try to climb quicker, desperate to find any sort of safe perch, which you can imagine how that turned out. But over time, I learned to manage the pressure, breathe, and take it slow. But what makes things really interesting is Cairn's piton mechanic. At any point, you can place a piton into the cliff face, which you hook your rope into, creating a mini checkpoint. This essentially lets you be the arbiter of your own difficulty. Will your ego say, pittance are for pussies?
I'm a pussy, I'm a pussy, I'm a pussy, I'm a pussy, I'm a pussy.
There was this moment where I placed my piton in a desperate attempt not to fall, but wasn't quick enough.
I really thought I had it.
I ended up falling, but when I climbed back, it was still drilled into the wall and I could use it. Those kind of small details really go a long way. This gives the player more agency on the wall. Imagine if Uncharted had a piton system. Instead of just falling to your death and loading a checkpoint, you could instead place your own. What if, when you fall, the pitons had a chance to fail? This would allow you to create your own scripted moments. I feel like you could do some really cool stuff with this.
Hell, they already created a system that could be adapted to this. The best thing about Uncharted 4's climbing is the rope swinging mechanic, because it's one of the only tools that grants some sort of freedom and requires engagement through timing. Just expand on this more and you're good.
This also makes sense within the context of the game. Nathan Drake is an explorer. Why wouldn't he bring climbing gear on his excursions? And if he had a rope, it would also rationalize Nathan Drake's extremely unnecessary and risky maneuvers and lower the suspension of disbelief.
What Cairn ultimately facilitates is player freedom. Every bad grip, every fall, every climb conquered is a product of the decisions you have made. And I'd take that over a meaningless or predestined path any day. But that's just me.
Playing Cairn has been a breath of fresh air. You should definitely go play it if anything I've said in this video resonates with you. It's another example of a small indie studio doing something interesting, and is great if you feel a lot of AAA games have become samey and stale. It's not perfect, the story's pretty ass, and it definitely has a lot of frustrating jank. But Cairn is a reminder that these ubiquitous gameplay systems that we've become so used to can be better. Whoa, did you see that? There's a shooting star. Watch this video and don't forget to like and subscribe!